Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911 Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, your host, and we're back with another discussion today. We're talking about waste, in specific, turning waste to productive uses through a new kind of business called the Creative Reuse Center. Now, Maureen Wise, who's a longtime Earth911 contributor, recently wrote a story, it's published today, about how creative reuse centers collect usable materials such as leftovers, surplus creative supplies, and redistribute them to the community so that people can use it in their own crafts and life. We're also joined by Nicole McGee, who is the founder of Upcycle Parts Shop, a pioneering creative reuse nonprofit in Cleveland. She and her team have diverted more than 37 tons of waste from landfills since they started up in 2014. You can learn more about the Upcycle Parts Shop at www.upcyclepartsshop, all one word with no dashes or spaces, .org. www.upcyclepartshop.org. Welcome to the show, Maureen and Nicole. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Well, hello. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you, Mitch. It's wonderful to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's great to have you. Now, Maureen, you discovered the Creative Reuse Center in your own journey towards sustainability. Tell us why it caught your attention. What do they do in a nutshell?
So there's many creative reuse centers throughout the world. We're just one of many for sure. And they all work a little differently, but generally they all do divert materials from the landfill, sometimes by rebranding waste from industry into art supplies, or sometimes just accepting materials that are gently used art supplies and redistributing them into the community at a fraction of the cost. And our Creative Reuse Center also puts on programs for schools and businesses, and also have creative programs as well.
Now, that's interesting. So you're saying from industry as well as just people donating leftover materials. What kind of industrial materials are we talking about?
So maybe Nicole can say exactly what we have in the shop right now, but like I use examples like flooring or cabinet samples a lot. Programs I've been to, we have those sorts of things on hand.
That's right. They're small, the
Mm-hmm.
samples that Maureen's talking about. So we're able to collect sample materials that are really unused, but finished with their first life. And that's a size we can capture since we are not a large warehouse. Another industrial material we love and use constantly is called vinyl wall covering. Mm-hmm. It's like the material that's corporate and that's done to fit special locations. And
you can
they're
draw
often...
and it's erasable.
Right. Well, yeah, and the backside can be a canvas. Artists can use them as canvases, and then they're waterproof and they're durable. So we make bags out of them, or we work with kids to make flowers out of them and decorate chain link fences with these weather resistant, durable flowers. Actually, right on our street right now, that's happening outside the door.
Yeah.
So you're thinking beyond the traditional use of the material too. It could be reused in a way that wasn't the original intention.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We talk a lot about the properties of a material.
So the creativity here is many different levels. So Nicole, tell us about Upcycle Parts Shop. How'd you turn that 2,000 square foot storefront into a system that has diverted 74,000 pounds of arts and crafts and other supplies from the landfill?
I like it when you put it that way. Measuring our impact is something that we can improve on because we weigh what comes in. And so that's how we came up with that amount. But the amount of people that we impact and the artists we support and the teachers that get lesson plans from us and that we get to reach out to, all of those ways constantly happen. And, there's some magic in it that I don't understand. But the pieces that I do understand are that creativity can be contagious. And it's a pretty sincere invitation, asking somebody to come and make something or join us for this or come on over and paint this bench or just come on in our shop and chit chat and get to know who we are. And those invitations over time have created a consistency and sort of a trust and an understanding, and also have positioned us as a really great place to go for creative supplies. There's big box stores, but if you want to really save some money and find the thrill of the hunt and be surprised and inspired all at once, people in our city and in our region are coming to know that we are the place to start with.
Now, and Maureen pointed out that a lot of this is under cost, but that's because you're taking something that was treated as waste and turning it into something useful and valuable. It doesn't have to be sold at a premium. That's an important twist. And as we think about optimizing the entire economy, there's a ton of waste out there that could be turned into some productive use. Your creative approach to the materials is really inspiring because it's not looking at it as like, could we use this vinyl wall covering as vinyl wall covering, but in other contexts. So, Nicole, what would I find if I stopped by the shop today?
Well, we are open today, Mitch, so you are welcome to stop by the shop today. And if you walked in, there's the large amount of fabric. That's a regular donation and a very popular supply. There's materials like frame matting and all kinds of canvas and corkboard and specialty papers, some old photographs, we like to call them other people's relatives. You can make them your own, leather, and then some things that are like trinkets and silver spoons and some vintage treasures and a huge amount of jewelry and broken jewelry pieces and beads. So there's sections in the shop like any art supply store, but it's a place that's full of traditional and non-traditional art supplies.
Now, do you find most of the material in your store comes from donors, or do you have programs to collect materials from organizations as well?
It's a great question. We are small and we're still young. In fact, the 37 tons that we are very happy to have measured is a very small amount compared to other creative reuse centers like us. Often they start out larger. So we, being in a storefront, being based in a community on purpose, are small but mighty. And the reality is that the reach that we have is limited by the space that we're in. But we keep working, and we imagine that we'll be able to bring in a collections position in our future. We know that other organizations that have a bigger amount of staff and a bigger business model do that. We still just accept them as donations. And in fact, we require them to be by appointment because the waste stream is so abundant and people are so generous. We actually have to sort of make sure we can manage and keep up with the supply that people are ready to share with us.
We have more than enough stuff coming in.
We have more than enough stuff. And that's the message, that's happening. And so we have a retail shop, but then we also have programming. And we use the materials both to sell them at very low cost and then also to supply our own workshops and classes and programs.
Okay. I want to talk about that in a minute, but Maureen, can you talk about your discovery of the Creative Reuse Center and in examples perhaps of how it has catalyzed community action more widely, getting people to think about taking waste and turning it to productive uses?
So I was part of our county solid waste district master recycling program in 2015, and that's how I discovered Upcycle Parts Shop. We had many speakers and field trips, and one of the staff members was a speaker, and we were required to do 20 hours of volunteering. And so I did most of my volunteering for Upcycle Parts Shop, and I did a lot of writing, not surprisingly, for them. And I also became a board member a few years later when we became our own nonprofit, because initially we were underneath a community development corporation.
Well, okay, so that's an interesting point. Now, it started off through the community development corporation. Is this really is it a business or is it a nonprofit? What's the right way to think about this? Is this something that provides livelihoods and that's a good nonprofit strategy, or is this something that you could grow as a business?
Well, I get excited about this question because we are both. We think of ourselves as a social enterprise. So we are federally registered as a nonprofit organization. It's very important to us to accept donations and to bring in volunteers to help us work. So those are the fundamental reasons we're a nonprofit. And we also have a mission, but we do have a business model, and we are still 7 years old. We are always working on upping our level of earned income, but we currently generate 40% of our budget ourselves in the things that we charge for and in the ways that we support ourselves. So a business gets closer to 100% of that. And we're still working on that. But because of where we're based, because of our mission, because of the work that we do, we are able to receive philanthropic support and support from individual donors.
So taking the philanthropic question, is this the kind of thing that if, and let's just say Mackenzie Scott, the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos, is giving away so much of the money that she has from Amazon stock. If she were to put $10 million into supporting creative reuse centers annually, how much would that amplify the industry?
What a great question. Hi, Mackenzie. Thanks for listening.
Yes, right now.
Well, I could talk about this a lot, so I'll let Maureen chime in as well. But I want to say that reuse is very local, and creative reuse centers like ours are very localized, and we focus on our work and on our programs and on our mission. And we're not always awesome at fundraising because that work is inherently meaningful, and it also takes a lot of work to generate as much earned income as we do. So we sometimes spend too much, and I'm speaking for myself, but I'm generalizing this to imagine other leaders are in this position where we spend too much time maybe running the thing so that we can support ourselves to the greatest extent possible, but not reaching out to all the donors who actually might be very interested in the ways that we impact. So that said, our operating budget is it's less than $160,000. And $10 million and times, the amount we could grow exponentially ourselves, even if we were at $1 million organization. The impact, the people we could hire, the waste we could demonstrate reduction and reuse would be enormous. And then times, many other places throughout the country. So I'm wide open for that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so do you see this as a model that could be applied to address other waste streams? And do you, for instance, have examples of solving the problem of making inexpensive auto parts replacements available, or addressing food shortages in food deserts by putting together this kind of a program? Is it a model that can extend to those applications?
So we think that eliminating waste overall, like completely, is maybe impossible, really hard. But using leftovers can be profitable. When I was thinking about this in Cleveland, we have plenty of companies that do this. A few businesses use, municipal yard waste to make a profit and make mulch. And we have a number of companies that collect compost, both from individuals and also corporations or universities, businesses, and they create compost and soil. And of course, that's not what we're doing, but we really believe that planned or known waste stream is better to be circular and not sent to someone else to be responsible for. We have, like Nicole was saying, industrial partners that we're happy to take their leftover materials, but we don't want to be the people that take all of the leftover materials, right? Like, we are not big enough to be able to support the excess or remnants from, the auto industry in general.
Well, I understood that you aren't, but do you see this approach of saying, of looking at waste as something that has value? Is that a good way for us to think about solving some of these other problems, which we typically try to address with a highly profitable business rather than something that's organized as a nonprofit whose side benefit, besides creating local prosperity, is diverting so much waste from.
Yeah, I think that looking at waste as an opportunity is a business model for many people, and is an area that economically and sociologically and in all ways we should be growing and thinking about. If you can get your materials from the waste of another process, then that's an economic business case right there. And then if you can create economy around that, even more so. And so we think of ourselves as demonstration, not solution, but demonstration. But absolutely, looking at the assets and the resources around us is where it all starts.
So let's get back to what goes on at the Upcycle Parts Shop. You do in-store and in classroom programs, training, and creative events. You also do parties. So, how often do you do that? What's the typical week look like for the organization?
Yeah, typical is what we're excited to be sort of getting back to. But right now we have a partnership down the school or down the street at a high school, and we're there daily right now. In the fall, we are planning on introducing our programs throughout the region to 20 different high schools and perhaps being at an elementary school. So that's for us. Again, we're small and that's big. That's a lot of growth in our education area. And while we're doing that, we're open to the public in our retail shop 4 days a week. And we work with about 20 volunteers. And then we really do community building work and center ourselves in the neighborhood that we're in Cleveland. And that involves, weekly lunches outside with our neighbors and programs that support the creativity of neighbors who are already here and have called this neighborhood home long before we did.
Now, we've talked about the fact this is highly local, but do you think that there are online approaches where, for instance, you could offer training or other events online and send a package of materials people could use to participate in training? Or is that too polluting? Are we going to emit too much CO2 because we're moving stuff around?
Yeah, shipping does get complicated, but other creative reuse centers are doing exactly what you suggest. So a quick search on Etsy for creative reuse or supplies might get you somewhere. And Google does seem to be the freshest way to stay on top of what's happening with other creative reuse centers. So places are doing it. We haven't been able to figure it out for ourselves for online and shipping, just from a fulfillment perspective. And because one way that we're a little different than other places like us is that commitment we have to the local community where we are. But we know, and Maureen sort of as looking at this from a broader perspective and an objective as a board member and also sort of as a writer, looking at this is helping us sort of understand our best practices that are replicable, but each place like us takes on the flavor of the place where it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maureen, where did this movement start? How do you see it growing in terms of how many centers there are now?
So I've been working on a couple articles for this and doing a lot of research on creative reuse centers. I've been talking to many different ones, and the oldest that I found, and I think they claim to be the oldest, is Reverse Garbage in Australia. And they were started in 1975 by a group of teachers and community workers that were just trying to divert industrial supplies or leftovers from the landfill, and they were using those supplies in the classroom. And Reverse Garbage is much bigger now. They do huge programs, and they have a warehouse, unlike we have. We have just a storefront, and they have, like, I know you can go and shop there, and then they also have programs and such. But there's many creative reuse centers. I'm thinking hundreds. I really don't know. I've been trying to ask all the different people that I've talked to, do you have a list of all the creative reuse centers? And none of them do. So I can't tell you how many there are, but there's a lot, and there's many in different countries than the United States, of course.
So as a practical question, if somebody's listening and they're thinking, I'd like to do this, is there an organization or a resource that they should look to begin thinking about how to do so?
So there's an organization, one of these creative reuse centers, Scrap Creative Reuse, has 4 locations in the United States, in Portland, Oregon, Richmond, Virginia, Baltimore, and Ann Arbor. So they kind of have a franchise model. They've worked with different communities and different people in those communities to start their own. They do offer consulting and can help people start their own. I don't know that they're going to like take over the market or like be
it's not like a market that can be
right. But so they can help people. But I really do think it's very much where you are is going to be different in different places, like how you do this sort of creative reuse.
Nicole, who do you look to learn and improve?
Yeah, we stand on the shoulders of giants. We were really lucky to have some funding to be trained by the Scrap Exchange in Durham, North Carolina, and then later be coached by Pittsburgh Center for Creative Reuse. And so to learn from others who have figured out the model is like just a huge boost, And we also pay attention to our contemporaries, and we appreciate the ways that they share what they're going through. It's one of those, this is a model. There's usable materials that can be reused for creativity and for education. And it's just about figuring out how to monetize it in a way that allows people to be paid and rent to be paid. So in some ways it's really simple. In other ways, actually doing that when you're selling things for 50 cents is not simple. So it is important to learn from others, and to the extent that somebody could pay for consulting services, it would be worth it. It certainly was for us.
Well, this is fascinating, and I want to thank both of you for taking the time to talk to us about it today. Nicole, how can people learn more about the Upcycle Parts Shop, and do you have a newsletter people can sign up for?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Upcyclepartsshop.org is our website. And at the top, there is a sign up for our newsletter. We also are on many of the social media platforms, and we appreciate your interest. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Nicole. We love having you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We've been talking with Maureen Wise, an Earth911 writer, and Nicole McGee, who's the founder of the Upcycle Parts Shop. Folks, take a look at creative reuse centers as a way of thinking about repurposing all the waste that we produce today. The American economy is highly inefficient. In fact, the whole global economy is highly inefficient. It's full of these material flows that can be turned to better uses and directed away from landfills. So don't just think in terms of crafts, arts, and art supplies and so forth. Think about other areas and see whether or not you can find a solution and maybe start a small local business that can get this off the ground. This is Earth911 Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe. We're going to be back with another innovator interview soon. We're also working on a live show, which we hope to launch pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. Would you do us a favor and share this podcast with 2 of your friends, because we want to spread these ideas so that we have less waste in the future. In the meantime, we'll be back soon. And take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a great day.